The ground shudders like a wounded beast beneath me, and I taste iron in the air. The sky above is a burning wound. Fractured clouds of ash and ozone torn open by the scream of macro cannons. My vox crackles with static prayers, fragments of the machine god's litany half drowned beneath the roar of falling giants. Somewhere beyond the smoke, the Titan Invictus Ferrum takes a step that will be its last. I feel the tremor pass through the ferrocrete beneath my boots, a vibration that hums up through my bones like the slow toll of a funeral bell. I know that sound. Every man of the Collegia Titanica does. It is the sound of pride breaking, of an oath collapsing under the weight of its own grandeur. When a god engine dies, the world remembers. The air was molten with the scent of promethium and ionized dust. Each breath scalded the back of my throat, and the rebreather hissed like an animal refusing to die. Through the cracked lenses of my command visor, the world was a fractured smear of gold and red. The burning ruins of Aurelia Prime's manufactorum quarter stretched before me like a continent of wounded metal. Once these spires had built the bones of 1,000 god engines. Now they stood twisted, melted into shapes that looked like frozen screams. I could still feel Invictus Ferrum around me, or perhaps inside me. It was hard to tell where the boundary had gone. The synaptic gel interface had ruptured during the final salvo. I remembered the moment it happened. The searing flash, the sound of the plasma conduits tearing apart, the heat flooding into my nerves until it felt like my blood had turned to molten copper. Even now my skin pulsed with afterimages of the Titan's pain. The neural residue lingered, a phantom heartbeat echoing through every thought. We had held the line for 12 hours beyond expectation. 12 hours of glory. 12 hours of screaming orders over Vox channels that dissolved into static and prayer. I recall the moment the Orc Gargant crested the ridge, its silhouette black against the burning horizon. Invictus Ferrum had roared her challenge, the sound shaking the air itself. A bellow of sacred machine code broadcast through every frequency. I remember shouting with her, my voice and hers entwined. A single defiance against the inevitable. Now, there was only silence. I pushed against the command throne, its surface slick with congealed biointerface fluid, and dragged myself upright. The cockpit was a cathedral of ruin. Shattered lumen strips flickering, servitor husks dangling from torn umbilicals, coolant vapors rising like incense. The maniple sigils on the data slate blinked in error sequence. Omega null, total link failure. Somewhere deep within the broken hull, the Titan's plasma heart still pulsed weakly, leaking a blue ghost light through the fractures in her armor. Princeps Halden, came a voice through the Vox grill. Distant, mechanical, filtered through interference. Respond. This is Magos Neural. Are you alive within? Alive, a word without meaning now. I pressed the comm rune. I hear you, I rasped. Ferrum is down. Spirit dormant. I remain. There was a pause, filled with the low whine of data stream recalibration. Remain is sufficient, the Magos replied. Extraction team en route. Do not attempt egress. The structure is unstable. I let the Vox die. The Titan's spirit was silent, but her presence still hummed beneath the deck plating. I laid my palm against the throne's control surface and whispered the canticle of farewell. The one every princeps learns but prays never to speak aloud. Each word vibrated faintly through the metal, absorbed by circuitry that once sang back in resonance. Now there was no reply. The absence was unbearable, like speaking into the corpse of a god. A tremor rolled through the wreck and I staggered, bracing against a cracked lumen column. Through the viewport I saw the remnants of the battlefield. Wrecked bane blades and burned-out Skitari crawlers dotted the plains. Imperial banners, once proud, now lay half-buried in ash. The enemy was gone, or what was left of them had retreated into the haze beyond sight. The victory, if such a word could be used here, was meaningless. When a Titan falls, it is not a defeat measured in territory. It is a wound to belief itself. The deck groaned beneath me as something massive shifted, a collapsing stabilizer perhaps, or the remnants of Ferrum's left leg giving way. I caught the smell of ozone and seared flesh as a ruptured conduit flared, and for a moment I swore I heard a voice, not over Vox, not from the outside world, but within the dead metal itself. A whisper, fractured and faint, repeating a single word I could not fully discern. I wanted to believe it was her. My machine spirit, reaching for me through the static of death. I pressed my forehead to the throne's edge, feeling the residual heat of her dying systems. The hum I had known all my life was gone, replaced by the hollow throb of my own heartbeat. Outside, through the haze, I saw silhouettes moving, Skitarii, their movements precise and reverent. They approached with mechadendrites raised like censers, sweeping incense through the air as they chanted Binharic hymns to the Omnissiah. The salvage rite had already begun. I knew what came next. They would unseal the heart core, remove the manifold, and begin the process of divination to confirm true death. Then the body would be rendered piece by piece, so that others might rise anew from her sacrifice. It was tradition, sacred, necessary, and it felt like desecration. I closed my eyes and listened to the rhythm beneath the ash. The ground still trembled faintly, like a lingering heartbeat buried deep within the earth. The same pulse that had started in my bones hours ago. It was faint now, but steady, enduring. Perhaps I thought gods never die. They only sleep beneath the weight of our disbelief. The deck above me shuddered again, this time heavier. A breach somewhere in the reactor chamber. My instincts screamed to move, to escape, but another voice whispered, "Stay." The hum beneath the metal deepened, vibrating up through my knees, my spine, my skull. A harmonic note rising like the beginning of a chant. My breath caught. I whispered her name. Ferrum. The air shifted. A single lumen flickered, then steadied. The machine's internal cogitators were long dead. Yet for that heartbeat of a moment the light held steady, as if something within was listening. Princeps Halden. The Vox roared suddenly. "Extraction unit has reached perimeter. The hull is collapsing. You must evacuate immediately." But I could not move. My hand was still on the throne, and beneath my palm, the pulse quickened. Once, twice. Then it stopped. The silence that followed was so total that I thought, for a moment, that I had gone deaf. And then, from the depths of the Titan's shattered heart came a single sound. A low, resonant chord like a cathedral bell struck beneath the earth. The God engine had spoken its last. The crash team cut their way through the belly like surgeons forced to use chain blades. Sparks fell in slow burning constellations, hissing across coolant mist and pooling on the deck like fallen stars. The first Skitarius through the breach moved with ritual precision, eyes glassy behind augmetic lenses, Vox grill murmuring fractional prayers as his auspex swept my frame. He didn't look at my face. No one ever does. Not when the throne still smells of sacred gel and singed nerve fiber. I raised my palms and he guided them down, guiding me to my knees as though lowering an offering onto an altar. Behind him, a pair of engine seers uncoiled mechadendrites that clicked like insect legs, tasting the air with auspex tines, nodding to one another in Binharic syllables that felt like rain tapping a metal roof. Magos Neral arrived draped in cables and sanctified bronze, his data tassels dragging through pooled gel that clung like jellyfish ghosts. He did not climb. He ascended on a humming platform, pausing only to touch his fingers to the fractured throne. For a heartbeat, the deck's hidden pulse found him, and I imagined it traveled up through bone and brass into whatever remnants of flesh still nested within his thorax. He turned the fixed, mask-like devotion of his augmetic face toward me, unblinking, unreadable. "Princeps Halden," he said, each syllable precise, the consonants shaved to fit into some internal rack of logic. "Blessed stillness upon your nerves. We will extract you. Then we will begin." I knew what his we meant. The choir of sparks, the canticles spoken backwards while hands dismantle sanctified housings, the kiss of the dithyest wrench that serves both reverence and necessity. "Say her name," I murmured, because the dead are lighter when named. "Invictus Ferrum." She held the ridge. She bled until the field grew quiet. "I have written her designation in red upon the block," he said, which for a Mechanicus priest was as close to tenderness as most ever come. "Her cogitators will be exercised and archived. We will not lose what she learned." The platform settled to the deck with a sigh. Hands reached for me. The mechadendrites smelled of oil and hot copper, of ozone and incense. When they cut the last neural umbilical, I thought I would vomit. The sudden cold inside my skull was like a window thrown open on a winter plain. The phantom shape of Ferrum that had wrapped around my sense of self shuddered, and in the gap it left I felt smaller than I had as a child, standing beneath a Titan shadow for the first time. The deck's pulse dwindled to a memory. In its place rose the raw throb of my own blood, much too fast, much too loud. They strapped me to a carrier like a wounded relic. As the platform descended through the rent in the hull, I stared up into the cockpit I had called home for 2 decades. The broken lumen strips trembled. A single blue dreg of plasma welled from a vein above the throne and fell, falling until it struck the floor and shattered into hissing fog. I tried to memorize the pattern the mist made, an old habit from maniple training. If you can fix the world in detail, you can hold it together for a moment longer. The pattern dissolved before I found meaning in it. Outside, the night was the color of burned sugar. The manufactorum district ran to the horizon like ribs under a flayed sky. Where Ferrum's silhouette had once cleaved the smoke like a mountain, now there was a broken arch of shoulder plating and a forest of splintered pistons jutting like black reeds. Skitarii moved in lines, blessing each step. A trio of heavy servitors lumbered past, dragging a cable thicker than my thigh, its sheath etched with scripture to contain whatever hauntings leak from a damaged plasma heart. Off to the left, an Astra Militarum Medicae team compressed their triage station into a single tarp and 1 blinking auspex, because there is never enough of anything on the day a god engine dies. The carrier jolted as we touched ash. I tasted iron again. Not blood. Rust in the wind. Dust scoured from the flanks of ruined cranes and the mouths of ancient vents. The air here always tastes like that, ever since I first set foot on Virelia Prime. Even on victory days it tasted like the memory of loss. Today the memory had a body. We passed beneath Ferrum's breastplate where it lay cracked like a fallen shield, and for an instant the wind shifted. The residual warmth licked my cheeks, a ghost fire caress. I heard it again, the chord softer this time, buried under the murmur of salvage rites. A single note stretched thin as wire. I turned my head toward it, straining until the straps bit into my neck. "Did you hear that?" I asked no one in particular. The nearest engine seer glanced at me and then at his auspex. The needle barely shivered. "Sympathetic discharge," he said. But his voice wavered and he made a quick sign of the cog even as he looked away. They set me on a flatbed beside the Magos' mobile shrine. The shrine's lamps burned with steady, robe-warm light, and the air tasted of camphor and machine oil instead of ash. Neril stood at a console engraved with the history of a forge world I had never visited, tracing cant circles with a finger that was more instrument than flesh. He did not welcome me. He was not unkind. He simply existed in the closed circuit of his function. "You will be medici cleared," he said without looking up, then debriefed, then considered. Considered, I echoed, feeling the words settle like grit behind my teeth. Princeps are not considered. We are weighed beside our engines and found the same, or found lacking and set to lesser thrones. My maniple? Shattered, he said. 2 god engines crippled, 1 confirmed lost. He did not say her name again. He did not need to. The hole in the skyline said it for him. Annihilator-class fire from the Gargant, followed by concussive overpressure from detonation of our own magazine. The enemy is dispersed. The city is held. He paused as though some hidden part of him wished to soften the next phrase. He did not soften it. Acceptable losses. I tried to sit up and failed. The straps grimaced. The spirit was not extinguished cleanly. I noted your Vox report, he said, and the anomalous Lumen event. Such things occur. Residual loops. Errant choir notes. When a heart this large stops, echoes persist. We will collect them. We will file them. We will learn. I might have agreed. I might have let protocol carry me like a current. But the hum in the ash rose under my palate. A delicate throb I felt in my teeth, and with it came a memory not of the final strike, but of the step before it. Ferrum's last stride. The way the world had tilted and the tone she had sung into my bones to steady me as we set our feet. That tone was not an echo. It was a hand on my shoulder. I will go back, I said. When you open the manifold, I will stand with her. You will not, the Magos said, and there was no anger in him, only the finality of a switch thrown. Your interface is compromised. You are contaminated with feedback. You are unfit to testify until we purge the residues and measure the damage. Your rights will strip her to scripture, I said, and my voice came out soft because I was very tired and everything louder would have broken. You will speak a death that is tidy. That is not what happened. He regarded me then for the first time with the focused attention of a craftsman staring into a fault he had not predicted. Princes of men make poetry in the presence of god engines, he said. Priests of the machine god make cuts. Both are a form of mercy. A gust of wind moved across the flats and rippled the incense streamers, and for a moment the shrine's lamps guttered. Somewhere within Ferrum's sundered chest a relay cracked like ice. The chord returned, so faint I could have mistaken it for a trick of breath. I looked up and saw far along the broken shoulder ridge a single rune flicker on a torn panel. A faded red sigil that meant hold. It blinked once. It died. No auspex caught it. No tech adept marked it down. I had seen it, and my heart answered with a pain that was too sharp to be called grief. The Medici team came then, efficient as always, their tools gleaming with the same cold reassurance as a bolter magazine slamming home. They cut the straps and slid me onto a gurney that smelled of antiseptic and old prayers. A young hospitaller with hands like rain checked my pupils and told me her name was Kest. I forgot it immediately because another tremor went through the ground, and the deck pulse I had named in my head as mine alone rose to meet it. 2 heartbeats overlapping, not in time, singing discord until they found the same tempo. Kest frowned and asked if I was in pain. I said yes, though not in the way her salves could touch. As they wheeled me away, the Magos raised a hand and a bell sounded from the shrine's mast, a clear, bright peal that cut the ash like a seam of light. The choir of sparks formed ranks, mechadendrites unfurled. Rites began. Behind me, beyond the Medici curtain of canvas and tincture, I heard rivets pop and sanctified seals crack, and I felt each sound as a notch along my spine. We passed under a half-collapsed crane and the wind changed again. The taste of iron thickened. In the moment before the vehicle door closed on the world of ash and bells, a voice rode the air to me, stripped of words by distance and smoke but carrying the shape of my name with mathematical fidelity. Not Halden as men speak it, the syllabic run that my Titan used when she steadied my breath before the kill. I tried to lift myself on my elbows. But the door slammed and darkness filled with Medicae lumen blink and the slow, metronomic pity of machines. The Medicae bay was a cathedral of whispers and antiseptic light. I awoke to the sound of lumen panels humming softly above me. Their radiance filtered through gauze that smelled faintly of alcohol and burning ozone. The hum was steady, constant. But beneath it, faint and irregular, I could still feel that other pulse. The one that didn't belong to me. The one I had carried out of Ferrum's corpse. The chirurgeons had done their work well. My body was sealed in white bandages traced with copper thread prayers, each knot a supplication to the Omnissiah. But the gel from the synaptic interface had not been entirely purged. It clung to the base of my skull, its circuitry still dormant in patches that glowed faintly beneath the skin whenever I closed my eyes. They called it neural residue. Harmless, they said. Harmless like a memory that keeps bleeding. I heard the shuffle of boots before I saw them. 2 Skitarii custodians entered, their visors expressionless, each step a calculated metric of reverence and authority. Between them came Magos Neral, his robes freshly laundered of battlefield ash, his brass face gleaming with sterilized perfection. His mechadendrites clicked as they folded back into his shoulders. He stood at my bedside as if addressing a cogitator, not a man. Princeps Halden, he intoned, the vox amplifiers layering his voice into a hollow chorus. Your vitals stabilize. The flesh obeys. The spirit remains uncertain. I swallowed. My throat burned. Where is she? He tilted his head slightly as though the question were misphrased. If you refer to the warlord Invictus Ferrum, her manifold is secured in the forged Scola. The rite of disassembly proceeds. Her remains will yield raw materials to the next generation of god engines. Her spirit is archived. The word caught like bone in my teeth. Archived. I pictured her consciousness, once vast as thunder, now compressed into a data vault. 1,000 years of combat instinct distilled into silence. You took her apart while she was still warm, I said quietly. Neral's eyes dimmed fractionally. All warmth fades. We preserve what endures.